Yo, what is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Calvary's Cave, and today we're going to be taking a look at what I'm going to unofficially call Deluxe Edition Volume 15 of Berserk. And woo boy, do I have some thoughts. I want to start off by talking about Koji Mori. Right after Kentaro Miura passed away, Koji Mori did release a beautiful tribute chapter. It's a fragmented, heartfelt look back at their personal relationship from the time that they were kids all the way up until Miura's passing. It's incredibly touching, raw, personal, and if you haven't read it yet, I highly recommend checking it out. To me, it feels like a genuine passing of the torch. But with that said, I really haven't enjoyed where the story has gone so far since then. Now, there are some things that I do like the art style is very reminiscent of Miura's work. You know, Studio Gaga took over and they're doing their own little thing, but it does look visually stunning. And sure, the characters do occasionally look a little off, but you can always tell who they are. It's not the end of the world. The drawings are still absolutely beautiful. And that signature Berserk gore, it's totally there in full force. So you're not going to be missing out on any of that visceral intensity. Unfortunately, the pacing feels completely off. The characters don't ring true anymore. Nobody sounds or acts quite like they should. Take Puck, for example. He's always been this happy-go-lucky little elf full of energy and comic relief. Now he's this serious, almost emotionless figure, and it's a stark contrast to everything that we knew about him. You could argue it's because of what happened in Elfhelm, you know, the destruction, the loss, but the story itself shows that Puck didn't have a super deep connection there. He basically forgot about his hometown for ages and only remembered it around the start of the Millennium Falcon arc, so I'm not fully buying that he's devastated over its destruction. And then there's this unexplained tension or even hatred towards Rickert that just comes out of nowhere. I'm not sure if this is Mori's personal rendition of Berserk. He clearly wants to honor his friend and finish what he started. I get the desire to complete the tale, but right now it kind of reads more like a fan fiction of what Mori thought Berserk should be. And you remember in the last video when I made that Mario joke, I said something along the lines of, oh, sorry Guts, your princess is in another castle. But actually, Casca regains her memories, everything's progressing nicely, the gang is all back together, and it's very clear that I spoke too soon, because Griffith shows up and he destroys all of Elfhelm and takes Casca with him to Falconia. Hey Guts, sorry man, your princess is in another castle. It's like every time that we get a glimmer of hope or forward momentum, the story rips it away in the most brutal way possible. And while that's very on brand for Berserk, the execution here just doesn't hit the same. On top of all of that, I'm genuinely not sure where the story is even going from here. Everything that we gained from the end of the Golden Age all the way up till now feels completely wiped away. I was thinking, all right, Guts is getting stronger, the crew is growing, everyone has access to magic now. We might actually have a real shot at fighting back against Griffith and his army, but nope. Not anymore. The Berserk story is already incredibly long, and the release schedule is like something like 2 chapters per year. It's absolutely brutal. Koji Mori wants to honor Kentaro Miura by finishing his story, and I respect that intention. But with this glacial pace, like how do you ever plan on finishing the story? Especially when you reset Guts and the crew back to square one. Elfhelm is destroyed, Casca is taken, the group loses all of their magic, kind of. Most of the important characters that we met recently, like Danon and Yzma, they're all gone, along with basically every whimsical creature that we were introduced to. They're all rendered useless in one fell swoop. So what are we even doing here? How much longer are we going to be strung along? Berserk started well before I was born, and at the rate that we're going with the trajectory we seem to be heading, it really doesn't feel like we're going to see an ending to Berserk for at least another 10 to 20 years, if we even get one at all. There's truly no end in sight. We were building towards something meaningful, only for it all to be ripped away. Now, let's take a step back and talk about the loss of everyone at Elfhelm, because I have my own qualms with it. You know, Danon, Yzma, and all the others, it makes absolutely no sense to me. It's never properly explained, or at best, it's poorly explained. Apparently, it has something to do with the giant tree in the center of the island being destroyed, which somehow severs all connections to the astral plane, but the chapters don't really sell that or dive into the details. For some reason, Puck and Evilera are the only ones who get to stick around. Every other elf, mystical creature, and character that we met on the island, including Yzma, just randomly vanishes. It comes completely out of nowhere. It feels like it was supposed to be this big, emotional gut punch, but I felt nothing during my first read-through. because it wasn't drawn or presented clearly. I completely glossed over it. Don't even get me started on why Puck and Evil Air were able to survive when everybody else didn't. I've seen all of the fan theories and none of it clicks for me. Call it what you will, but it is a straight up plot hole that you're just supposed to accept. This event is also supposed to be the reason that Puck is no longer his usual self. He's now this very serious, emotionless elf. But that doesn't even track either. Back in the Conviction arc, Puck witnessed the mock eclipse in Albion. He's seen countless dark and gruesome things, and you're telling me that his island peacefully fading away without any blood, gore, or visceral horror is what finally breaks him? I'm not buying it. I'm calling it poor character writing. And Puck isn't the only one. Nobody feels normal here. Guts immediately spirals into this helpless state. I get the despair after losing Casca again, especially since it feels like all of Miura's development over the last 30 years just got undone. But even in the deep depression, Guts barely acknowledges Rickert or anyone else. He doesn't fight for his life, and nothing about it feels consistent. We're also supposed to gloss over the fact that Guts still has the brand on his neck. Even with that temporary seal, it still needs regular maintenance from Shiruka, and she's not around. He's chained up for who knows how long, and we're expected to believe everything happening takes place in such a short window that the nightly monsters just don't show up. The brand's rules haven't changed. The crew used to take shift at night so Guts could actually get a little bit of sleep. That safety net is gone now, and we get zero mention of the consequences. It's like the story just up and forgot one of its core mechanics. On the other side of things, we do get a few glimpses of Casca and Falconia, and she's basically living as this pampered princess in a very luxurious cage. They don't fully explain what's happening with her, but she's in this calm, docile state, like her memories have been suppressed or she's being drugged. Every now and again, she has these brief moments where she snaps out of it and fights back, but it's clear that she's gonna be stuck there for a while. I also don't think it's well explained why Griffith wanted to capture Casca. I had to do some digging online, and the common theory is that Casca's son, the demon child, is interfering with Griffith's plans, so taking her helps minimize that interference from his other half. And you know what? That actually makes a lot of sense, and it's a solid narrative reason, but it's really frustrating that the story just doesn't clearly convey it. A quick line or two from Griffith would have gone a long way. And that brings me to another issue about how everything went down. Everyone keeps talking about the great wave of the astral world merging with the astral and physical realms. So if the barriers are already thinner and magic is more present in the world, why did literally everyone on Elfhelm just vanish when the island was destroyed? It feels inconsistent. The island had this giant spirit tree acting as a powerful local anchor that let astral beings keep stable physical forms and boosted magic like crazy. When Griffith shows up and that tree gets wrecked, the whole domain collapses. The elves, Mero, Danan, Yzma, pretty much all of the astral inhabitants get ejected back into the broader astral plane. The island itself falls apart. But if the Great Wave already merged the astral plane with the physical world to some degree, why was Elfhelm so fragile? It comes across like the story needed some type of way to wipe the slate clean and get rid of the supporting cast without fully explaining the rules. And that's frustrating because the earlier lore felt more consistent, and that's exactly why the power situation feels messy too. Some characters can still use their abilities while others just lose all of their powers, and you and I are just left to piece it together ourselves. Once we leave the ruins of Elfhelm, the crew gets boarded by the Kushan Empire. This is supposedly the big moment where Rickert finally rejoins with the group, and we see that Daiba and Silet are still around, but the reunion just feels off. Rickert doesn't really act like himself. For one, he's not being followed around by Erica, which was a really weird choice. Erica has been glued to his side no matter what. It doesn't make any sense that he'd head out on a dangerous sea mission and just leave her behind. In Kushan territory, no less. Guts barely reacts to seeing him at all. And this is right around the time that the story completely shifts gears in a way that left me with nothing to say. It just wasn't fulfilling. During all of this, Shiruka decides to perform a ritual to track where Casca was taken, and that's basically it for her. She's gone from the story, completely removed, and there's no telling how many years in our world time that we're gonna have to wait for her to come back. back. From what I can tell, she does reach Falconia in her astral form, but for now, she's just out of the picture. So yeah, another major character sidelined. Great. From there, we get into the Kushan Empire lore. This is where a lot of the politics and new developments kick in, but honestly, I can't give you a clear breakdown because it was so confusing, and I just didn't care enough to dig deeper. We see Daiba and Silet are still active, trying to reorganize the Empire after the past disasters. There are clan councils, power struggles, and a big strategic meeting about how to deal with Griffith and Falconia, but it all feels kind of muddled. So many new concepts and characters get thrown in without enough weight or clarity, and then Rakshas shows up out of nowhere. He brings chaos, summons some trolls and astral monsters, or maybe not, I can't really tell. But nonetheless, everything turns into a giant battlefield. It builds up like a major threat, only for it to get resolved immediately when Farnese steps in. Y'all ready for another thing that feels off? Farnese used to be humble, still learning, very much in a supportive role, but now she goes into full commander mode and she was like, hey, everyone step back, I've got this. And in one fell swoop, Farnese single-handedly saves the day. It just doesn't really track for me. The Kushans basically blame the whole incident on Guts and his brand of sacrifice, saying that it attracted all of the demons and astral monsters, which sure, the brand does draw evil, but we're talking an army of trolls and chaos on this scale? Normally it doesn't summon this much at once. And tying back to what I said earlier, Guts is chained up. His seal is not being maintained. And yet the nightly horrors just don't seem to be an issue. The politics are there, the action happens, but none of it carries any of the same impact or logical weight as before. On top of all of that, after the Rakshas incident, everyone turns on Guts. They decide to cage him up like an animal in the stupa, and this is apparently the part that everyone's been blowing up online. The big Guts revelation moment. According to the story, Griffith and Guts are cut from the same cloth. They're both these creatures of the interstice, or something like that, only half present in the physical world, and once Guts realizes this about himself, he snaps out of his despair and gets back in his right mind. And yeah, I was so tired of seeing him stuck in that emotional slump, especially when you're only getting a couple chapters a year. If you are a longtime Berserk fan, that must have dragged on forever. I'm glad we're finally out of that portion, but the way he reaches his conclusion doesn't fully make sense to me. Does this mean that Guts is now some insanely powerful being who can suddenly go toe-to-toe with Griffith? I have no clue. It's not really fully explained yet, and it also comes with a weird design choice. Guts is suddenly this absolute behemoth, like he put on an extra 100 pounds of muscle out of nowhere. It's a striking visual, but it feels jarring, especially since he's basically been malnourished since the Elfhelm incident. I'll say this, and these are just my personal thoughts as I dug a little bit deeper. It turns out that this chapter and some of the more recent chapters were purposefully made meticulously. This was meant to be one of the biggest plot twists in the entire story, something that Miura had been saving up for a very special moment. And supposedly that's why these chapters took so long. The team at Studio Gaga were double and triple checking everything, so we only got 2 chapters this year. They wanted to make sure that they portrayed Miura's vision as accurately as possible. And you know what? I'll give them props for at least that. Even so, how we got here still feels super rushed to me. After all of that buildup, all Guts really needed was a nap, his first true full sleep cycle, and suddenly he realizes who he actually is, and he snaps out of his despair. Does this mean that the story actually has a true ending in sight, or are we still going to be here for quite a while? I haven't the slightest clue, but because I love Berserk so much, I'm still going to be seeing it through to the end. My gripes still stand, but at the very least, I'm invested. Thank you, everyone who has joined me on my journey through Berserk. I know that I have a small channel, but it has been an absolute blast getting to experience this journey with all of you. To everyone who's commented on any one of my videos in the past, I read every single one, and I truly appreciate the support. While I'm not the biggest fan of Koji Mori's continuation of Berserk, I can honestly say that I will still be a lifelong fan. It has been an incredible journey. If you're new here, feel free to like and subscribe, leave a comment, and let me know your thoughts. If you're thinking that I'm being completely off base, or if there are actual explanations for all of my gripes, feel free to let me know in the comments. I would actually love to hear them. And with that, that brings my full journey through Berserk to an end. Thank you for sticking with me. We've got plenty more shows to cover, including my thoughts on Witch Hat Atelier, or is that how you say it? I'm not entirely sure. So I hope you stick around for those too. Anyways, you guys stay beautiful, and I will see you in the next video. You still here?